In view of the upcoming Edo State governorship election, the Inter-Party Advisory Council has urged stakeholders not to view the election as a war or do-or-die affair. The national chairman of IPAC, Yusuf Dantale, in a statement on Saturday after a stakeholders meeting, explained that the exercise is intended to select leaders who will promote good governance, accountability, and development, and advise all those involved in the election to prioritize peace, equity, and justice, and also called on stakeholders in the off-cycle election to collaborate to create an environment conducive to credible elections. He reminded the stakeholders that the election is not war, but simply an exercise in democracy where voters choose leaders who will promote good governance, accountability, and development, and urged all stakeholders to adhere to the principles of democracy, respect the rights of others, and prioritize the interests of the Edo people and Nigeria in general, calling on all to join them as they work towards deepening democracy in Nigeria. He also called on voters in Saturday's governorship election to come out en masse and exercise their civic duty without hindrance, and also encourage the electorate, to vote for candidates based on their manifestos, track records, and leadership qualities, and also urged voters to reject any form of vote buying as it undermines the integrity of democracy, urging them to recognize that the will of the electorate is sacrosanct and must be respected. The decision to choose leaders, according to him, rests squarely on the shoulders of the people, saying that it is what makes democracy unique and should be a selfless service to the people, stressing that no responsible leader would want to force themselves upon the leader, and appealed to the independent National Electoral Commission and security agencies to remain neutral and impartial, pointing out that their roles are critical. What do you have to say to this story, Dr. Nelson?
Well, the IPAC chairman or is a leader have said all the right things under ideal circumstances. All the right things, really. But we are very far from the ideal. Very far from the ideal. It was Claude Ake of blessed memory that said that in economies like ours, when all these other sectors have been killed, when there's too much premium placed on politics, on politics, that succeeding in elections is more like becomes more like war. In Nigeria today, that is our reality. All the other industries seem to have collapsed, either by design or by complete carelessness of the Nigerian political elite. So you find that increasingly governance and politics is now the industry in Nigeria. Everybody needs to be there. Professor Emekekwe said the state has been feudalized. The state is now a means of production. Instead of facilitating the means of production for other sectors, the state itself now is a means of production. So that even if you manage to somehow acquire some level of leverage without politics, you still need to be in politics to protect your power, to protect your wealth. Otherwise, one miscreant can just initiate one policy one day and run you over. So it's a terrible thing. But he has said all the right things. And my concern now is that the charged atmosphere in Edo State might also lead to a state where citizens just decide to stay back and not come out to vote out of a sense of safety, self-preservation. And that will not augur well for the election overall, because then whoever emerges may not be the actual candidate that ought to have emerged, and then you run into this cycle of having a leader that is actually not legitimized in the eyes of the people, and that has serious implications for governance going forward. So I would join my voice to his to say, look, politics shouldn't be war, and the interest of the people should be prioritized. But beyond just this appeal, the federal government, INEC, and the security agencies have a responsibility to Nigerians, have a responsibility under the law to make sure that they provide a level playing field for everybody to participate. We still have to preserve this nation. And what people who are so aggressive about power forget is that if they run down the system, then everybody is the loser. And they will lose more because that is their profession. Many of them do not have any other thing that they are doing. They don't have any other job. When you ask them what they are doing, their profession is politics. And it's such a disgrace. Because ordinarily, you should have something else that you're doing and you come into politics to serve. But now we have professional politicians in Nigeria. And they should not think that they have so cowed the military that anything is still possible. This is a third world democracy. Anything is, so they should be careful. This democracy is still fragile and needs to be preserved.
Right. On the heels of the statement by IPAC, you recall that Governor Godwin Obaseki came out to say that the election is a do-or-die affair. And he also said that any attempt to rig the election will result in death. Now, such strong words coming from the governor of a state, what do you make of it? What do you think would be in the minds of the electorates? Of course, you've spoken about voter apathy. And then on the minds of the other political parties as well. If the governor is coming out to say that any attempt to rig the election will be met with death. Now, the issue of rigging election is on one hand, but right now I'm dwelling more on the statement of the governor. By implication, is the governor saying that he has foot soldiers on ground, militants on ground, that will perpetrate violence if the PDP feels threatened?
Well, that language is very strong, especially coming from a governor in an election year. But whether he has foot soldiers or not, he will be the one that will answer that one. But those statements are very strong. And for a sitting governor, I look at it from two angles, really. Okay. It's either he's trying to bear his fangs as a governor. He wants to tell that he has the power. Or he has actually been cowed to such an extent that he's shouting out of desperation. Yes. So we need to look at it from those two angles.
Let's look at this.
What will make a governor to maybe he has seen something that is bigger than him, and he begins to shout like that. So I really cannot tell what he has seen and what will make him talk in that manner.
Okay,
because the last time too, his party was saying that the APC National is putting too much pressure and is ready to rig the election and all those kind of stuff.
But the PDP National is also in Edo State.
You said?
PDP National as well is in Edo State, and Atiku Abubakar has also come out.
No, you're talking about going to campaign for the party.
Yes.
No, I'm talking about power of incumbency, federal might.
No, Obaseki has power of incumbency.
I mean, federal
might operating in
of course, dwarfs the state governor's power. That's why the state governor is now shouting like that.
No, okay, that
you will not hear an APC governor in these dispensations talk the way Obaseki have talked.
Interesting. All right. Then, but when you look at the whole scenario playing out, PDP were unable to get their acts together on time when their house was in crisis. In fact, the three major parties in Edo State, APC, PDP, and Labour Party, all had inter-party crisis in the aftermath of their primaries. But APC, they were able to, close ranks and then reconcile the warring factions. And the Guber candidates, both parties that were fighting, the primary, the aspirants, were meant to reconcile. One became the Guber candidate and the other one was deputizing him. However, in the aspect of PDP, the issues continued, and Obaseki at the same time wasn't playing a very smart politics, because that was the wrongest time to even pick a fight with Shuaibu. To a large extent, there should have been a way to reconcile, but probably egos were playing out, and at the same time was having issues with the Oba of Benin, which also put him out of favor with a lot of people from the Benin Kingdom, particularly the people who hold the Oba in very high esteem. And then you look at the defection of the South-South chairman, Dan Obi, and then you now look at the strong men and women that decamped from PDP and joined the APC. Now, few days to the election, Obeide Nhama, that's a major political colossus in PDP Edo State, decamped with Alimiken you know. And a few hours after that, the governor came out to make the statement. So when you say the governor probably has been pushed, boxed to a corner, when you look at what has been happening in the party, it appears that the main people who would have swayed votes to PDP have decamped and pitched their tents with APC. Don't also forget, some obedience in Labour Party also openly pledged support for the APC in Edo State. So, I mean, it's a lot going on in Edo State. But when you look at all these variables, apart from the, let's say, federal might playing out, do you think PDP had their house in order, knowing the kind of battle they were about to enter? Because, I mean, Obaseki is calling it war at this point.
Okay, let me start with obedience. Some obedience pitching their tent with APC. You know, for me, in the obedient movement, for me, I see two broad groups.
Yes.
One set that believes in P2B, and for them, they can pick whatever, take whatever choice at the local level. Their core interest is P2B.
Yeah.
And then they have a mix of the people who are actually the traditional politicians that are fair weather fellows. Anywhere they see the light, they move. If they say that it's working here, they move. And those ones, if there's a way to classify, they really do not belong to the Biden family. They are just looking for ways of patching wherever they think is happening. Then on the other side, you know, I've said it here before, that I have difficulty really separating the APC and the PDP.
Why?
Yes, because they are just like two sides of the same coin. They keep switching. If you follow a politician for a while, you'll be wondering. You need to, anytime you want to speak, you need to ask again. Where is this one now? Has he gone back to APC or is he still in PDP? And that brings again back to the fore the what I said earlier about politicians in Nigeria being professional politicians, not being driven by ideology, not being driven by any belief system.
Our political parties have ideology, Doctor.
That the ideology, when you look at the nitty-gritty, you see that there's no real difference.
There's
no real difference.
Politicians will always come out to tell you that.
I'm not talking about party manifesto, about projects on this. I'm talking about the core values of the party that really should separate one party from another in terms of the belief system. A party should be more like a religion. It's actually a kind of religion. So you believe what you believe, and if it does not favor you for a season, you still stick there. But in our case, no. So all that movement may not be because of whatever the governor have done right or not done right. It might just be an indication that the politicians have looked at the mirror and seen that the federal might is coming on heavy, and they don't want to belong to a camp that they perceive might lose, and they start switching.
So it's about interest.
Most of the time. And all that too, we put the governor under a lot more pressure.
And there is also, isn't there a possibility of these politicians also being wooed?
Being wooed? Very, very possible. I was about to I forgot that when you talked about the reconciliation in the APC and how quick it was. It's easier to reconcile when there's a lot of dough on the table. Yeah, but when there is none, then you see the real people, the real...
But there have been cases of... a sitting governor or a governor that has finished his tenure and wanted to, put his own anointed, still overcoming power of incumbency. There has also been situations in Nigeria where sitting governor, that is the power of incumbency right now in elections, still fought against federal might and still won. And
succeeded.
Yes. And there have also been cases where even a politician or an aspirant actually was able to win election against a sitting governor.
Yes. All that can play out, but you need to dissect them case by case so that you don't make sweeping generalizations that will not hold water. You see, for a sitting governor to win against the federal might, in most instances, one, maybe the governor have actually taken a long-time view in his approach and done some things that were right and have the
support
people
of the masses
really following. And if he has played his politics right, and I've had a number of the stakeholders in the state that he has pulled to his side, and they also have looked at the interest of the masses and say, if we move against this man, it might not work for us. That might also play out. And then the other part if you watch those states that succeeded like that, look well, you see that there are states that have a certain level of leverage in terms of their resource base, either internally generated or allocation. Those other states that are not that strong and cannot pull their weights significantly might not stand. In spite of the personality of the governor. So those are some of the criteria. You might just look at some of these things, one case to another, and then you see what really played out.
All right, very quickly as we wrap up this story, looking at Edo political ecosystem and how tensed it is right now in Edo State, what are your projections for the upcoming election in September 21?
Projections. I like to really shy away from that. In Nigerian political scene, projections, because I beat my chest to some certain degree before the 2023 general elections, but see where we are now. The projections did not work for those of us that we are really looking at the variables that should count. At the end of the day, it was like moju business. So projections for me, I will shy away from that.
There might be surprises.
But no, there really will be surprises. Okay. But my appeal is that this democracy is fragile. I've said that before here. And that all stakeholders, if they call themselves stakeholders indeed, it means they have something to lose if the system goes bad. If there is a collapse, if there is a crisis, they have something to lose. So because they are stakeholders, they should, in spite of their interests, they should find some room to think about the system. And they should be mindful of the kind of politics they play in Edo State.